I'm Erica Sullivan, 32, standing in a Portland courtroom, heart pounding. My parents, who barely raised me, sat across the room, their eyes cold, lips curled in disgust. My mother leaned forward, her voice sharp, hissing. "We'll sue you that $800,000 is ours." My father nodded, arms crossed, confident they'd win. They thought I'd crumble, but I stood tall, silent, staring back. This wasn't just about money. It was about years of absence, years of choices they made. The judge, a stern man with a knowing look, scanned the room, then paused on me. His eyes widened slightly, as if he recognized something or someone. My parents didn't notice, too busy whispering to their lawyer. I clutched a folder of evidence, my fingers trembling. Knowing what was inside could change everything. A month ago, my grandfather, a real estate tycoon, left me his entire fortune. They claimed I'd manipulated him, but the truth, they'd taken plenty already. The judge's gavel hit, silencing the room. "Let's begin," he said, voice steady. My parents smirked, certain they'd walk away richer. But something in the judge's tone made my heart skip. What did he know? Why did their confidence waver when he spoke? The answer was coming, and it would shake them to their core. I stayed quiet, ready for the truth to hit. What made them panic? Stick around, you'll see. Have you ever faced family betrayal? Drop your city in the comments, smash that like button, and subscribe to join our community for more real-life drama. When I was 3 months old, my life changed forever. My mother, Karen Sullivan, and my father, Stephen Brooks, left me on a porch in Portland, Oregon, with a note pinned to my blanket. They were young, barely out of their teens, chasing dreams that didn't include a baby. My grandfather, Thomas Sullivan, a real estate tycoon, took me in without hesitation. His big house on a quiet street became my world. I can still feel the warmth of his hand guiding me through our backyard, pointing out the oak trees he'd planted decades ago. He'd sit me on his lap, sketching floor plans, explaining how he built his empire one deal at a time. Those moments shaped me. Karen and Stephen weren't part of that picture. They'd show up maybe twice a year, always rushed, always distracted. I'd wait by the window, hoping for a hug, but Karen would glance at her watch, muttering about appointments. Stephen would ruffle my hair, call me kid, and leave with a check from Grandpa. Over the years, those checks added up to $800,000 money Grandpa gave them to start over. They took it, but never stayed. I stopped expecting them to. My best friend, Megan Foster, saw it all. We met in first grade at our Portland public school, bonding over scraped knees and shared secrets. She'd come over after class, and we'd sprawl on the living room rug, playing board games while Grandpa cooked dinner. Megan noticed how Karen and Stephen barely called, how their visits felt like business transactions. "They don't deserve you," she'd say, her voice fierce even at 10. I'd nod. But deep down, I still wanted them to show up. Grandpa filled the void. Every Thanksgiving, he'd roast a turkey, set the table with mismatched plates, and tell stories of his first property deal. He taught me to balance a checkbook by 12, to negotiate by 15. "Erica," he'd say, "your worth isn't in what others give you, it's in what you build." I soaked up every word, dreaming of my own business one day. His office, cluttered with blueprints and coffee mugs, was my favorite place. I'd sit there, watching him work, feeling safe. Karen and Stephen's visits grew rarer as I got older. By high school, I barely saw them. Megan and I would ride bikes through Portland's parks, laughing about boys and planning our futures. She'd ask why I didn't call Karen Mom or Stephen Dad. I didn't have an answer. Then just a hollow ache where family should have been. Grandpa never spoke ill of them, but his silence said enough. He'd hug me tight, promising I'd always have a home. One memory stings. At my 8th grade graduation, I scanned the crowd for Karen and Stephen. Megan's parents waved from the front row, but my parents' seats were empty. Grandpa was there, clapping loudest, his smile wide. Later, Karen called, claiming a work emergency. Stephen didn't bother with an excuse. Megan squeezed my hand, whispering, "You've got us." That night, Grandpa took us for ice cream, and I pushed the hurt down. By 18, I was ready for college, armed with Grandpa's lessons and Megan's loyalty. Karen and Stephen sent a card once, with a $20 bill inside. No note. I didn't cash it. Grandpa framed my high school diploma, hanging it in his office next to his own awards. "You're my legacy," he said, eyes shining. I believed him. Those years in Portland, with its rainy winters and cozy coffee shops, built me. But the absence of Karen and Stephen left a mark I couldn't ignore. They'd taken Grandpa's money, but never his love. That was mine. Years later, everything shifted. My grandfather, Thomas Sullivan, passed away in 2011, leaving a void I couldn't describe. At 30, I sat in his Portland office, surrounded by his old blueprints and faded photographs, grappling with the loss. His lawyer, Andrew Hayes, called me to his downtown firm, handing me a sealed envelope. Inside was Grandpa's will, naming me the sole heir to his multi-million-dollar estate, every property, every account, everything he'd built. Attached was a handwritten letter, his familiar scrawl filling the page. My hands shook as I read his words. "Erica, you were always there. They weren't. They took enough $800,000 over the years. This is yours." My throat tightened. He'd known their absence, their choices, and still chose me. Megan Foster, my best friend, was with me. She sat across the table, her eyes soft but steady, urging me to keep reading. The letter detailed every payment Grandpa made to Karen and Stephen, checks cashed, dates recorded, totaling $800,000. "He wanted you to know the truth," Megan said, squeezing my hand. I nodded, feeling a mix of gratitude and anger. Grandpa had given them so much, yet they'd given me nothing. Megan stayed late, helping me process it all, her presence grounding me. We talked about his lessons, his laugh, how he'd always believed in me. I tucked the letter away, vowing to honor him. Days later, my phone rang. Karen's voice cut through, sharp and demanding. "You think you can keep it all?" she snapped. "That $800,000 is ours." I froze, her words echoing the courtroom moment I'd face soon. Stephen's voice chimed in, gruff, backing her up. They claimed I'd manipulated Grandpa, twisted his love into a fortune. I stayed silent, my heart racing. Their accusations stung, but the letter burned brighter in my mind. They'd taken his money for years, and now they wanted more. Megan urged me to fight. "They don't get to rewrite history," she said, her voice fierce. We met at a Portland coffee shop, rain tapping the windows, and pored over the documents. The will was airtight, Andrew had assured me, but Karen and Stephen were relentless. They'd hired a lawyer, ready to drag this to court. I pictured Grandpa's face, his quiet strength, and knew I couldn't let them win. Megan pulled out her laptop, showing me a spreadsheet she'd made, dates of their visits, sparse and cold, matched against Grandpa's payments. "This is your proof," she said. I felt a spark of resolve. I called Andrew Hayes that night. His calm voice steadied me as I explained Karen and Stephen's threats. "They're claiming you influenced him unduly," he said. "But the will's clear, and we have records." I trusted him. Andrew had known Grandpa through business deals, his reputation solid in Portland's legal circles. He suggested we gather more evidence: bank statements, emails, anything to show their absence and Grandpa's intent. I agreed, feeling a weight lift. This wasn't just about money, it was about truth. Karen called again a week later, her tone venomous. "You'll regret this." "Erica," she hissed, accusing me of stealing what was rightfully theirs. Stephen muttered in the background, his words unclear but hostile. I didn't respond, letting their anger wash over me. I thought of Grandpa's letter, his careful handwriting, his choice to trust me. Megan and I spent hours at my apartment, sorting through old photos and receipts, building a case. Each document felt like a piece of Grandpa's legacy, a shield against their lies. By the end of the month, I was ready. Andrew had everything: bank records, the letter, Megan's testimony about my childhood. Karen and Stephen thought they could intimidate me, but I wasn't the scared kid waiting for them anymore. I was Grandpa's heir, not just in money, but in strength. Their threats only sharpened my focus. The courtroom loomed, but I felt prepared. Anchored by Grandpa's words and Megan's loyalty, I'd face them head on. For him. Time moved on, and everything changed. In 2011, my grandfather, Thomas Sullivan, slipped away quietly, leaving me at 30 to face a world without him. His Portland home, once filled with his laughter, felt hollow. I sat alone in his study, surrounded by shelves of real estate contracts. When a call came from his lawyer, Andrew Hayes, he asked me to meet him at his office downtown, a sleek building near the Willamette River. There. He handed me a thick envelope, sealed with Grandpa's initials. Inside was his will, naming me the sole heir to his fortune, millions in properties and savings. A letter, written in his steady hand, came with it. "Erica," it read, "you are my family. They chose money over you. Taking $800,000 I gave them. This belongs to you." My eyes stung, his words a mix of love and truth. Megan Foster, my best friend, joined me that evening. She sat on my couch, reading the letter aloud when my voice faltered. "He saw everything," she said, her tone firm. The letter listed every payment Grandpa made to Karen and Stephen: bank transfers, dates, amounts, all totaling $800,000. It was proof of their absence, their greed. Megan's eyes flashed with anger, but she stayed calm, helping me absorb the weight of it. We talked late into the night, remembering Grandpa's strength, his belief in me. I clutched the letter, feeling his presence in every line. A week later, my phone buzzed. Karen's voice was icy, cutting through. "You don't deserve it all," she said. "That $800,000 is ours." Her words hit like a slap, a preview of the courtroom fight ahead. Stephen's low voice echoed her, accusing me of swaying Grandpa's decision. I gripped the phone, silent, my pulse racing. They claimed I'd schemed to take their share, but Grandpa's letter told a different story. They'd taken enough, and now they wanted everything. Megan didn't let me dwell. "They can't rewrite the past," she said, her voice sharp. We met at a Portland diner, the clink of dishes around us, and spread out the documents. The will was ironclad, Andrew had said. But Karen and Stephen were serious. They'd hired a lawyer, ready to challenge me in court. I thought of Grandpa's lesson: stand firm. Protect what's yours. Megan pulled out a notebook, jotting down dates of their rare visits, cross-referencing them with Grandpa's payments. "This will hold up," she said, her confidence steadying me. I reached out to Andrew Hayes the next day. His voice was calm, professional, as I shared Karen and Stephen's accusations. "They're alleging undue influence," he said, "but the will and letter are clear. Andrew had worked with Grandpa on property deals. His trust in me unwavering. He advised gathering more proof bank records, old emails, anything showing Grandpa's intent. I agreed. A plan forming. This wasn't just about the money, it was about honoring Grandpa's choice. Karen called again, her tone harsher. You'll lose everything. Erica. She spat, claiming I'd betrayed them. Stephen's voice rumbled in the background, cold and dismissive. I didn't answer, letting their words fade. I pictured Grandpa's study, his letter on my desk, his trust in me. Megan and I spent days sorting through his files, finding bank statements and notes that backed the will. Each piece felt like a step closer to justice. Karen and Stephen thought they could bully me. But I wasn't that kid anymore, waiting for them to care. I was ready to fight. For Grandpa. For the truth. The courtroom doors swung open. I stepped into the Portland courthouse in 2013, my heart steady but heavy. The judge, Daniel Peterson, sat high on the bench, his sharp eyes scanning the room. He paused on me, a flicker of recognition crossing his face. I'd heard he knew Grandpa through old real estate deals, but I didn't expect that look. Karen and Stephen sat across from me, their lawyer whispering in their ears. My mother's glare was venomous, her lips tight, while my father leaned back, arms folded, smug. I sat beside Andrew Hayes, my lawyer, clutching a folder of evidence we'd prepared. This was it, the moment to defend Grandpa's choice. Karen took the stand first. Erica manipulated Thomas, she said, her voice dripping with scorn. She turned him against us to steal the $800,000 we deserved. Stephen nodded, adding, "We're his family, not her." Their words stung, painting me as a schemer. I stayed silent, my hands clasped, trusting Andrew's plan. The judge's gaze shifted to me. Unreadable, but intense. I wondered what he saw Grandpa's heir, or just a name from his past. Andrew stood. Calm and precise. "Your Honor, we have evidence," he said, presenting a stack of documents. He showed bank records, detailing every payment Grandpa made to Karen and Stephen, $800,000 over 18 years. They were absent, he said, visiting Erica only a few times a year. The courtroom grew quiet, the weight of those numbers sinking in. Karen's face twitched, her confidence cracking. Stephen shifted in his seat, his jaw tight. I watched, my pulse quickening, as Andrew laid out the truth. Megan Foster took the stand next. "I've known Erica since we were kids," she said, her voice clear. "Karen and Stephen were never there, not for birthdays, not for graduations." She recounted my childhood, how Grandpa raised me alone, how my parents' visits were brief and cold. They took his money but left Erica behind, she said. The judge leaned forward, his pen still, listening closely. Megan's words were a lifeline, grounding me. I caught her eye, grateful for her courage. Then came the bombshell. Andrew presented a financial report, uncovered during our preparation. Stephen Brooks owes over $1 million from a failed business venture, he said, holding up loan documents. He hid this debt, hoping to claim the estate to cover it. The courtroom gasped. Stephen's face went pale, his hands gripping the table. Karen's eyes widened, her mouth opening in shock. They hadn't expected this. The judge's brow furrowed, his gaze locking onto Stephen. I stayed quiet, my heart pounding, as their lies unraveled. Karen tried to recover. "That's irrelevant," she shouted, her voice shaking. "Erica doesn't deserve it." But the judge raised a hand, silencing her. He turned to me, his voice steady. "Miss Sullivan." Anything to add? I shook my head, letting the evidence speak. Andrew closed with Grandpa's letter. Reading aloud, Erica was there. They weren't. The words echoed, heavy and final. The judge nodded, his expression firm. After a tense pause, Judge Peterson spoke. "The will is clear," he said. "Thomas Sullivan's intent was unmistakable. The estate belongs to Erica Sullivan." He ruled in my favor, dismissing Karen and Stephen's claims. Karen's face crumpled, her hands trembling. Stephen stared at the floor, his smugness gone. They'd panicked, just as I'd seen a month ago. Their greed exposed by their own secrets. The gavel struck, and I exhaled, relief washing over me. Grandpa's trust was safe. The gavel's echo faded, and I walked out of the Portland courthouse, free. The victory was mine, but the weight of it lingered. The court ordered Karen and Stephen to cover legal fees, a stinging blow after their loss. Andrew Hayes, my lawyer, shook my hand, his smile quiet but proud. "You did right by Thomas," he said. I nodded, clutching the folder of evidence that had sealed their fate. The truth had won. But the cost was heavy not just for them, but for me. Weeks later, whispers spread through Portland's tight-knit circles. Karen's job at a local retail chain unraveled. Her manager, hearing of the lawsuit's fallout and her public outburst in court, let her go. Unprofessional conduct. They called it. Though I knew it was the shame of her greed catching up. She'd built a life on appearances, and now those crumbled. Stephen faced worse. His hidden debts, exposed in court, spiraled out of control. Creditors hounded him, and his failing sports equipment business collapsed under $1 million loan. Bankruptcy papers piled up, and by mid-2014 I heard he and Karen had split. Their marriage, brittle from years of selfishness, couldn't survive the pressure. One gray morning, a letter arrived at my apartment. Karen's handwriting was shaky, her words pleading. "Erica, I'm sorry," she wrote. "Can we talk? I've lost so much." I stared at the page, her apology thin against decades of absence. She hadn't reached out in years, not for birthdays, not for Grandpa's funeral. Now, with her world falling apart, she wanted me back. I set the letter down, my heart cold. Stephen never wrote, never called. I didn't expect him to. Megan Foster met me for coffee that week, her eyes scanning my face for signs of doubt. "You don't owe them anything," she said, stirring her latte. I nodded, grateful for her clarity. She'd seen their neglect my whole life, stood by me through the trial. I told her about the letter, my voice steady. "I'm done," I said. Megan squeezed my hand, her silence a quiet agreement. I mailed no reply, blocked their numbers, and let the silence grow. They'd made their choices long ago. I turned my focus to my startup, a tech venture Grandpa had inspired. Portland's rainy days fueled long hours at my desk, building something real. The estate gave me stability, but my drive came from within. I hired a small team, leased an office downtown, and pitched to investors. The work was grueling, but it felt right, like honoring Grandpa's legacy. I'd sit late at night, spreadsheets open, remembering his lessons on planning, persistence. His voice still guided me, even in his absence. Karen tried again, leaving a voicemail through a mutual contact. "Erica, please," she said, her voice cracking. "We're family." I deleted it, my resolve firm. Family wasn't just blood, it was loyalty, presence, love. They'd offered none of that. Stephen's name surfaced in a local paper, a brief mention of his bankruptcy filing. I skimmed it, feeling nothing. Their lives were unraveling, but mine was just beginning. By 2015, I'd cut all ties. Portland's startup scene buzzed around me, and I threw myself into it. My team landed a major client, a step toward growth. Megan checked in often, her texts a mix of encouragement and humor. "You're killing it," she'd write, and I'd smile, knowing she meant it. The courtroom felt like a distant memory, the pain of Karen and Stephen's betrayal fading. I wasn't angry anymore, just free. Grandpa's trust had carried me here, and I wouldn't let it go to waste. My focus sharpened as life moved forward. By 2015, my startup in Portland was gaining traction, a tech platform connecting local businesses to sustainable suppliers. I poured everything into it, driven by Grandpa's lessons on building something lasting. My office, a bright loft downtown, buzzed with my small team's energy. Late nights coding and pitching became my rhythm. I'd glance at a framed photo of Grandpa on my desk, his smile pushing me through every hurdle. His belief in me was the foundation I built on. Megan Foster stepped up in a big way. She'd always been my rock, but in 2016 she joined as my business partner. Her knack for marketing and sharp instincts balanced my vision. "We're doing this together," she said, signing the partnership agreement over coffee. Her presence made the long hours lighter. We'd brainstorm in Portland's rainy cafes, sketching ideas on napkins, laughing over shared memories. Megan's loyalty, forged in our childhood, anchored our work. She'd tease me about my endless spreadsheets, but her pride in our progress shone through. The startup grew fast. By 2017, we landed a major contract with a regional chain, boosting our revenue. Investors took notice, and we secured funding to expand. I stood at a conference in Seattle, presenting our platform to a packed room, my voice steady. The applause felt like Grandpa's nod of approval. I thought of his real estate deals, how he'd negotiated with grit and heart. I was carrying that forward, step by step, in my own way. Inspired by Grandpa, I started planning a charity fund. He'd always given back, quietly funding local schools and shelters. In 2018, I launched the Thomas Sullivan Foundation, using part of the estate to support Portland's youth kids like me, who needed someone to believe in them. At the launch event, held in a community center, I spoke to a crowd of local leaders. "This is for my grandfather," I said, my voice catching. "He taught me family isn't just blood, it's who shows up." Megan stood beside me, clapping, her eyes bright with pride. Karen and Stephen were ghosts from the past. I hadn't heard from them since cutting contact. Rumors floated that Karen had moved to a smaller town, scraping by. While Stephen was rebuilding alone after his bankruptcy, I didn't seek them out. Their absence, once a wound, was now just a fact. I'd spent years waiting for them to care, but I'd learned to stop. My life was full work, purpose, people who mattered. The estate gave me freedom, but my choices gave me strength. Megan and I celebrated small wins, like our app hitting 10,000 users. We'd toast with cheap wine in my apartment, laughing about our scrappy early days. She'd remind me of Grandpa's advice, build slow, but build true. I felt him in every decision, every late-night email. The foundation grew too, funding scholarships for local teens. At one event, a girl thanked me, her eyes shining with ambition. I saw myself in her. And it hit me I was passing on Grandpa's legacy, not just his money. By 2018, our startup employed 20 people, and we were eyeing national expansion. I walked through our office, watching my team hustle, and felt a quiet pride. This was what Grandpa had wanted for me, not just wealth, but purpose. Megan and I sat down one evening, reviewing our growth plan. "You're unstoppable," she said, grinning. I smiled back, knowing we'd built something real. The pain of the past, Karen and Stephen's betrayal, the courtroom fight had faded. I was no longer defined by their choices, but by mine. Time brought clarity to my journey. By 2018, standing in my Portland office, I looked out over the city's skyline, the Willamette River glinting below. My startup had grown into a steady force, connecting businesses across the Northwest. Megan and I had built something solid, a testament to our shared grit. I walked past my team, their screens glowing with data, and felt a quiet strength. This wasn't just success, it was proof I'd honored Grandpa's trust. Looking back, I saw the path clearly. My childhood, marked by Karen and Stephen's absence, had once defined me. Their neglect, those fleeting visits, their hands grasping Grandpa's checks had left scars. But scars fade. The courtroom battle, their accusations of manipulation, their unraveling secrets, had tested me. I'd stood firm, not for greed, but for justice. Grandpa's will wasn't just money, it was his faith in me. That faith carried me through every challenge. From their threats to their downfall, self-respect became my anchor. Grandpa taught me early your worth isn't what others think, but what you prove to yourself. I'd spent years waiting for Karen and Stephen to see me, to choose me. They never did. But I chose myself. Cutting them off wasn't easy, but it was right. Their apologies, their losses, Karen's job, Stephen's bankruptcy weren't my burden. I'd built my own life, free of their shadows. That choice, painful but firm, shaped who I'd become. Family, I learned, isn't blood alone. Megan was my family, her loyalty unwavering from our schoolyard days to our boardroom victories. She'd stood by me when Karen and Stephen turned away, her voice steady through every storm. Grandpa was my family, his lessons etched in my core. His love wasn't in words alone, but in actions, raising me, trusting me with his legacy. The Thomas Sullivan Foundation, now thriving, carried his spirit. At a 2019 gala, I watched teens we'd funded share their dreams. One boy spoke of engineering, his eyes bright. I smiled, knowing Grandpa would have loved it. Karen and Stephen faded from my world. I heard they'd settled in separate lives, their names rare whispers in Portland's circles. I didn't seek them out. My heart held no anger, only peace. They'd chosen their path, greed over connection, and paid the price. I chose differently. My startup hit a milestone in 2020, expanding to California. Megan and I celebrated quietly, splitting a pizza in our office. Thomas would be proud, she said, her grin wide. I nodded, feeling his presence in our work. The foundation grew alongside us. We funded coding camps, art programs, scholarships for kids with big dreams and small means. At one event, a girl hugged me, thanking me for her chance at college. I thought of Grandpa's stories, his belief in second chances. I wasn't just building a business, I was building a legacy. Portland's rainy streets, where I'd once ridden bikes with Megan, now felt like home in a deeper way. This city, this life, was mine. Reflecting on it all, I realized the true lesson: family is who shows up, who stays. Karen and Stephen never did. But I wasn't defined by their absence. I was defined by my choices, by the work I put in, the people I lifted up, the legacy I carried. Grandpa's voice still echoed, build slow, but build true. I had my startup, my foundation, my life. They were proof. Standing by my office window, I felt at peace. I'd fought for myself, for Grandpa's trust, and I'd won. Not just in court, but in life.